All right. First rule of this channel, we not talk about this channel. Second rule of this channel, this is not legal advice. So this is going to be the 2024 fantasy football preview for the Cleveland Browns. And wasn't really excited to do this one. Then I started breaking it down, and there's a couple really interesting things to be looking at heading into camp. Remember, these are the things that I'm going to be looking for, the things that I think I know, and the stuff that I want to find out. Those tidbits that are not what I was expecting, and I found a few of those today. A couple other things to look at. I was thinking about, I was listening to a podcast, I don't remember which one, on fantasy football, and they were talking about building your own rankings. And I agree with that if you have the time and the ability to build your own rankings. Otherwise, you're kind of risking your season on other people's rankings. And again, the same process that'll win me a league will lose me a league. Again, I have to be able to take that risk that there is a guy that is inappropriately valued, and I'm willing to go up a round or two and get them. I put Cortland Sutton on my list, my priority draft list. I will not be getting him in my snake draft league. That is more of a casual league. Those guys are going to be slaves to ADP, which means if he's going at 100, I'm going to pick somebody else in that range. In my more competitive auction league, those guys will stab each other in the back. I will probably be able to get Cortland Sutton for like $1 or $2 in that auction league, which means I'm not going to have to spend like a 10th round pick on him. I can get him for basically a 13th round pick. And then he's got a lot more value with that potential upside to be like a wide receiver 2 type guy. So let's get on with the Browns. Let's see. Last year, they finished 16th in overall yards. They did score a surprising 23.3 points a game. And that's surprising. There were a number of injuries for the Browns last year. Nick Chubb went down in week 2. The offense didn't look good. The offense didn't look good until Joe Flacco took over in week 13, and then he basically won leagues, putting up a sub-elite like 20 points a game, 40 pass attempts a game, and like multiple touchdowns. Again, if this offense turns into the highest neutral pass rate in the league, they are going to have a lot of very sneaky type players versus their ADP. If they are more conservative, like we saw them at the beginning of the year with like Chubb and Deshaun Watson, they are going to probably not be able to return a lot. There's a lot of punts at a lot of positions relative to their ADP. So again, can we get Joe Flacco? Well, maybe we can this year. We'll find that out. So Zach Zinter, if I can pull this up, Zach Zinter was their 3rd round pick, guard out of Michigan, kind of a brawler. I do like the pick. I always like offensive linemen going early. Going to be a little bit more difficult to see what his pass pros like because that wasn't Michigan's offense. Jamari Thrash, he went in the 5th. I don't really know if he's going to make the roster. I thought he was going to go in the 4th. He is interesting in the way that I think he could be a solid wide receiver 2 in real life. I don't know how much he's ever going to have fantasy value. There is a road for him to have some fantasy value this year, and we'll kind of talk about that. Otherwise, like I don't think this is a very interesting pick. So let's get on with the quarterback situation. First thing I'm going to throw out there, and this is a little bit of a hot take. I'm not going to be shocked that Deshaun Watson either doesn't finish the season with the Browns or gets cut in training camp. And I will bring this up because before the Broncos cut Russ, he was in line to go 5-year, $245 million contract with $165 million guaranteed. So they are paying him $39 million to be on the Steelers this year. Steelers are giving him the veterans minimum. So, if we're under the impression that Deshaun Watson and his 5-year, $230 million contract that he signed in 2022, that the Browns won't just decide to eat the rest of that contract, like there's already precedent for this, and it just depends on like how bad he is and how much of a distraction he's going to continue to be. There's a little bit of an issue with that. When it comes to him in fantasy land, I was looking this up. I have him at quarterback 21 overall. I got to pull him up real quick. I have him as 21 overall on Fantasy Pros. When I was going live, he was about 141 overall, quarterback 22. That's about in line where I think he should be going. The biggest thing with him, if I were to re-rank quarterbacks, I would put them into 2 categories: guys that can win me leagues and guys that cannot win me leagues. Well, Deshaun Watson is in that guys that could win me league category. Theoretical rushing upside, if he can hit about 40 or 4,000 yards passing and 30 touchdowns, he's going to be able to jump into this tier of guys, that sub elite category with like your Jalen Hurts or Dak Prescott's, do basically what Joe Flacco did last year. I think that's a very difficult road for him. And why I keep moving him and the other Browns down is from a fantasy perspective, it's very rare that a guy bounces back. It's more likely that he continues to disappoint. And that's what I'd be looking at more than him getting returning to top 5 quarterback, staying, in that replacement level type of guy because of the limited amount of nimbly bimbly that we can get out of him on a week to week basis. But he would be there. 2 quarterback leagues, absolutely be picking him up as the possibility of winning him a league. In 1 quarterback leagues, and this is what I talk about with my competitive auction league. Guys will go out and they will pick up anybody that has league winner written on them. And Deshaun Watson, even though it's an ugly road, he has that road that we can talk about. We can tell that story ahead of time. So he would be there. If I'm in a league and quarterback starts going off the board, and I know in order to win that league, I'm going to have like an elite or sub elite guy because 20 quarterbacks go off the league or go off the board in a 1 quarterback 10 team league. And I've seen this. Then I would have to probably be smashing him because otherwise someone that threw out some lottery tickets is going to be picking him up week 1 if he has one of those seasons. And if we see that bump with the Browns where they're jumping up to like 40 pass attempts a game and Deshaun Watson is throwing for 300 yards, I don't really care about the turnovers. If he's throwing for multiple touchdowns, he has the nimbly bimbly to go along with 40 pass attempts, 300 yards passing, and a couple touchdowns, and then he's got a little bit of rushing upside. Like, yeah, you're looking at this Joe Burrow stat line from last year, but you're getting the rushing upside. That's going to get really intriguing really fast. So that was one of the things I was looking at, and it gets a little bit more interesting with this. And I bring this up before we get to Deshaun Watson. So they went out and they signed Jameis Winston to a 1-year, $4 million contract. And when you talk about a 1-to-1 replacement for what Joe Flacco did last year in this 5-game stretch, like that's Jameis Winston. Like, he's going to be a turnover machine. He is going to be a gunslinger. You're going to get 40 pass attempts. Who knows where those footballs are going to go? They're either going to be interceptions or they're going to be touchdowns. And this is why I bring up the fact that, like, bringing in Jameis Winston with this quarterback room is really intriguing because they brought in a 5th-round pick, Dorian Thompson Robinson. I liked him as a prospect to maybe basically become Tyler Huntley. They went out and they signed Tyler Huntley this year. He's the former Ravens backup quarterback. They brought him in for a 1-year, $1.29 million contract with about $500,000 guaranteed. So, like, I don't know how this quarterback room is going to shake out. Maybe, and I would expect that Dorian Thompson Robinson is going to get cut, maybe re-signed to the practice squad, something like that. Like, I don't even know if they're going to bring in Huntley and Winston, both of them, those guys. But again, the thing that's not going to shock me at this point is they just go full Jameis. They go highest neutral pass rate in the league, especially to start off. And at that point, like, yeah, you're looking at Jameis Winston being a theoretical league-winning quarterback at this point with that 1-to-1 replacement, the apples-to-apples replacement for Joe Flacco at the end of last year. So that gets really interesting really fast. Moving on to this one, let's see. We got the running back room pulled up. So Nick Chubb, and when I went live on this one, he was 85 overall, running back 27 on Fantasy Pros. Fantasy Pros move so much throughout the day that I was having trouble finding them as I was doing earlier takes. I have him at running back 31. This is the entirety of the running back room for the Browns. I would not rank any of them above 31. The only room that I dislike more than the Browns so far is going to be the Cowboys. So I would probably be staying away from all these guys, regardless of ranking. Nick Chubb, and I have this pulled up right now, he's projected to miss more than half the season. This is a heavy article from 2 days ago. Again, like, you do you when it comes to running your roster. But in this case, like, I would be expecting Nick Chubb with that gruesome injury that he had last year to go on the pup and get active about halfway through the season. I would not be drafting him at 85 overall. There's other guys I'd be drafting. I would not be drafting him at running back 27. If I was interested in Nick Chubb potentially being able to come back late in the season and win me a league, I'm looking at maybe IR leagues, and I'm going to be holding him in that IR slot the entire time. I imagine someone's not going to be able to hold their water, and they're gonna release them, or I'm going to be able to trade for Nick Chubb for a bag of chips. Because again, you're looking at about like 6 to 8 weeks that I'm going to guess it's going to take before Nick Chubb hits the football field. And then you're looking at two other things with this running back room. First of all, that he is Nick Chubb of old, and this was a pretty bad injury. He is over the age apex. The other thing is that these other running backs, and there's four other ones that we're going to talk about, maybe even a fifth one, that if one of these guys kind of takes over the room, like I just don't, or two of these guys take over the room, I just don't know if they're going to just go, hey, Nick Chubb, you're over the age apex, you're coming off a really bad injury. Here's the full run of it at midseason. I just don't know if I would necessarily trust that. So last year, Jerome Ford finished at running back 17. Um, he is going to be more of the receiving back, less of an inside runner. I would say with or without Nick Chubb, that I would put the over under on his rushing to be closer to like 600 or 700 yards. He has half of the running back stuff that we want. Design running back work, 44 receptions last year on 63 targets, 319 yards receiving, and 5 receiving touchdowns. He is a big, fast receiving back. He just doesn't run inside very well, and I didn't really like his pass blocking reps. But I would imagine if this turns into that like track meet that this offense could turn into, he's going to have a lot of value, especially in those zero running back type of builds where you could pick him up later. I do like his overall value going at running back 39. That's under running back 31 where I would have him. 125 overall to come in and kind of be that safe floor receiving back RB2 with a little bit of upside. I would like that overall with him. The other guy in this one is going to be Deonta Foreman. On Fantasy Pros, he's going at running back 217, 217 overall, running back 62, somewhere along those lines. He signed and I have it pulled up right here. He signed a 1 year, $1.292 million contract with $335,000 guaranteed. And I could definitely see him being the banger, more of the one-to-one replacement for Kareem Hunt last year, coming into this backfield. About 30% snaps, going to get the goal line work. Again, that's just definitely not something that, bringing it up, not something that Jerome Ford does well. So again, half the stuff that from a fantasy perspective, Jerome Ford's going to do half the stuff that we like, that design receiving work, and the other half of it for the first 8 weeks going to go to the Deonta Foreman. Now, the other thing to look at with Kareem Hunt is there's a span of weeks where he came in to be that goal line back between week 6 and week 10. And I don't know how much we can bank on rushing touchdowns because, everybody thought that Kareem Hunt was going to be that receiving back. He wasn't that guy. He was the guy they brought in the goal line. You're going to look on those really deep builds where you're going other directions other than running back, where you're going to have the ability to bring in a guy that's going to get about 10 touches, 10, 15 touches a game, probably multiple goal line touches. So there's going to be a little bit of value in those specific builds. Going back to this for Deonta Foreman, going in a lot of drafts, like basically for free in the 13th round to either have that early season replacement back or, zero running back RB2. So I like both these guys at their prices overall. A couple other guys to talk about. This is when it starts getting down to like cutting players. Pierre Strong, they traded for him from the Patriots. He was getting about like 20% snaps, 15 to 20% snaps at the end of the season. This is be something to be looking forward to during camp, what his projected role is going to be. And then they're going to have Naheem Hines coming back from water skiing accident, whatever he did, where he tore his ACL last year. He's going to be coming back from this. And some of these guys do have a little bit of redundancy, like Naheem Hines and Jerome Ford may have a little bit of redundancy, or Hines and Pierre Strong overall with their redundancy. It's going to be more that little bit of work that a guy like Pierre Strong would get in the rushing game and a little bit of the receiving game as that number 3 back that'll lower the overall floor and ceiling of your Deonta Foreman and Jerome Ford shares at the beginning of the season. But there is a little bit to like about them, especially because we can speculate on a little bit of a faster paced offense that will have more scoring opportunities than they did last year. All right, moving on to the wide receiver room. Amari Cooper, he's going to be over the age apex to start off with. On Fantasy Pros, he was going about wide receiver or 46 overall, wide receiver 24, which I think is slightly overvalued for what he's likely going to be giving you, right about there. Let me pull him back up and we can talk about him right there. So last year he finished with 1,250 yards receiving on 72 receptions, 128 targets, 5 touchdowns. So that's going to be one of the biggest things that's going to keep him away from winning leagues. If I'm betting on Amari Cooper over the age apex having, close to double-digit touchdowns, I'm probably going to be banking on Deshaun Watson being a league winner. That's the long and short of it. Otherwise, I at wide receiver 46 overall, if I'm spending on a Amari Cooper, that's slightly overvalued because I can't tell the story where he's going to get up in those elite type seasons to win me a league. And I can bring this up right here, and we can talk about what we would be looking at to spend like 46 overall, wide receiver 24. That's wide receiver 2. I'm spending Amari Cooper to be a wide receiver 2, limited pathway to be a wide receiver 1, and over the age apex. So now he can like basically disappoint. He's right on that cusp. This is exactly where he's valued. And I would probably be looking to go in a different direction. You're looking at Amari Cooper having to get roughly 5 more receiving touchdowns and 100 or 200 yards more receiving to jump up into that next tier of guys. And this would be in like non-PPR leagues. In PPR leagues, you're looking at like closer to an increase of 20 to 30 receptions for him to be able to make that jump into the tier where we can start talking about him being able to win leagues at that point. And like I talked about, now we're talking about either bring this back up, just Deshaun Watson being league winner at quarterback 22 prices, or the fact that they're going to bring in Jameis Winston and basically go like, we're going to go full Joe Flacco at the end of last season. Those are the ways that we were able to get Amari Cooper to return on investment. Now, I did look this up before I went on, and basically he's got a $11 million cap hit, whether or not they keep him in the last year of his deal. And that's where the biggest thing is going to come about from Amari Cooper is they can't trade him. They can't cut him. He's basically going to be on the roster one way or another. There's no point on trying to figure out a way where he's not the wide receiver 1 for the offense. Now, Jerry Jeudy, on the other hand, this gets a little bit more interesting. They went out and traded for him from the Broncos. It's a 3-year, $52 million deal, $17 million a year, 41 guaranteed. So they're paying him very solid wide receiver 2 prices for him to come in and potentially replace Amari Cooper next year. Now, this gets a little bit more interesting, and I have Elijah Moore pulled up because I went and looked this up. So when the Browns traded for Elijah Moore from the Jets last year, they sent their second-round pick for a second-round draft pick that's been a bust, and the Browns got a third-round draft pick back. So they got insurance on Elijah Moore not being very good. So last year he finished with 59 receptions, 640 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns. That was on 104 targets. He also had some return yardage, and he also got a little bit of run in the rushing game. So there's a little bit of value with Elijah Moore. No, I'm not saying we should go out and spend on Elijah Moore this year. I don't even have him ranked at all, I don't think, right now in this offense. But because the Browns got that third-round pick back regardless, I could definitely see them going, hey, we're going to run Jerry Jeudy in the slot. So that's what happened with Jerry Jeudy. He became more of a 50-50 slot to outside receiver in Denver as I clear this all out. That's super awesome. Let me bring him back up on my 50th take of the day. So to bring Jerry Jeudy back in, that he became a 50-50 slot only player later on in his career in Denver. So if Elijah Moore gets cut, it becomes a little bit more interesting where Jerry Jeudy is going to play. There's a few other guys to talk about when it comes to the receiving room for the Browns. And let me bring up Cedric Tillman first. He was the Browns 2023 third-round draft pick. Later in the season, when they got rid of Donovan Peoples-Jones, he started getting this larger run at the X position. So I don't necessarily think Amari Cooper fits best in the X. I think he fits best in the Z. He can play a little bit of the X if necessary. Cedric Tillman at that height and that weight, he is more of a classic X. I could definitely see him slotting back in there. That's what they were giving him a little bit of a run at. Kind of disappointed, was waiting for a little bit of a breakout. That never happened, but that's last year's third-round draft capital coming back for a second year. The other guy in this is going to be David Bell. He was 2022 third-round draft pick. he hasn't necessarily done anything in Cleveland. I can maybe see him getting cut, and this is going to open the door for our Jamari Thrash shares, a little bit of an interesting prospect. So trying to get an idea of how this wide receiver room is going to shake out is really going to tell the tale of what we can expect from Jerry Jeudy. And that's the biggest thing to talk about is how many targets are going to go to Jerry Jeudy? How many opportunities is he going to get with Amari Cooper being over the age apex and these other guys fighting for either X position snaps, which I don't think he's going to be a good fit for, or those slot position snaps. And in this case, like if Elijah Moore's gone, I could see him running the slot a little bit more. That's probably where he's best at in real football from trying to translate that into fantasy football points. I'm looking at my notes real quick. So in this one with Jerry Jeudy, he is going at 135 overall, wide receiver 56. He is on my short list of guys to be drafted. Player going to a new team. Wide receivers, potential wide receiver one opportunities available. Jerry Jeudy does tick a lot of the boxes. So again, I don't really care how good Jerry Jeudy is at real football. I'm trying to parse out what his opportunity is to get into the tier of guys like 120 targets to 150 targets, something like that, to end up being wide receiver one in an offense where we can maybe try and tell the story that it's going to be a faster neutral pace passing offense this year. There is some stuff to like, and one of the biggest things is with Nick Chubb being on the pup. What we're expecting that Nick Chubb's going to be on the pup at the beginning of the season. Now we can tell the story where there's more targets available in this offense instead of just trying to lean on the best player, which is Nick Chubb. So I could definitely see getting Jerry Jeudy into this range of potential wide receiver twos. So if I'm going to spend the capital on Jerry Jeudy at like 135 overall, wide receiver 56, to potentially get the same range of outcomes that I would be getting by spending on Amari Cooper at 46 overall, wide receiver 24. Again, I have Amari Cooper 40. I may end up moving him up on my board. Let me just pull that up real quick so I can take a look at it. If I move Amari Cooper up, I was looking at it. I could definitely see getting close to like wide receiver 30 with Amari Cooper. If again, this wide receiver room shakes out a particular way, if we can get, if we know that Elijah Moore is going to stay on the team, that means he's going to play the slot. Jerry Jeudy would probably end up playing the Z. Maybe Amari Cooper would end up playing the X, something along that. The guys that get cut, the guys that get moved are going to give a better understanding of the potential range of outcomes for targets with these guys. If I thought Amari Cooper is going to be that guy in the offense versus Jerry Jeudy, I would probably move him back up into that range of being able to return on wide receiver 2 with a wide receiver 3 price. Jerry Jeudy, on the other hand, I'm not going to say that he's got wide receiver 1 ranges of outcome, but you're probably looking at a career year, like close to this 2022 season, 100 targets, 67 receptions, 972, 6 touchdowns. That would probably be my over-under line for Jerry Jeudy right now coming into the season. They're paying him wide receiver 2 prices, and that's what you'd be looking to get on a return on investment, with the possibility that they're going to get that higher volume passing attack going on. So again, I would like Jerry Jeudy. There are guys at this stage of the draft that I would probably like more than him, and that long story to how he would be a wide receiver 2, but he is going to be on my list both in the auction league and in Snake Draft League at that cost overall. All right, moving on. I think this is all I got to talk about. David Njoku. I have him. I got to switch back over here. David Njoku, I have him as tight end 7. He's going right now on Fantasy Pros at tight end, 92 overall, tight end 9. Slow down, enunciate your words. I think he's slightly undervalued because in this range, and I got to pull up my notes, he is in my potential tier to be a unicorn. Maybe there's a story that we can tell where David Njoku jumps into that target hog role, that that number 1 in an offense, and it's a little bit higher volume passing offense this year. Like pull up my notes. Right now, I have him at tight end 7. That's underneath Kyle Pitts and Sam Laporta and ahead of Evan Ingram. These are the guys that like maybe could be tight end 1s. They also could be the third option in their offense. So this is where I would put him. And from a Fantasy Pro standpoint, It's not necessarily a good, super good value. I think there's some value when he's going at about pick 92, tight end 9. If I'm punting the position of tight end and someone gives them to me, especially like a round later, because again, I'd probably be taking Jake Ferguson locked in to be the number 2 in that offense over trying to gamble on what the Browns offense is going to be. Again, part of it's going to be speculating on maybe we're going to get a faster paced passing offense with the Browns, because that could happen. The other thing is it could still be the Browns led by Deshaun Watson. That's pretty ugly. So I probably would not want to be looking at drafting David Njoku outside of like the draft shakes out a certain way, and a whole bunch of the guys that I thought are going to have like league winning upside are gone. And he's one of the few guys left that have league winning upside at about pick 92. I don't know how much I really want to be going up and over drafting him. This is about fine for overall value. I mean, the difference between my tight end 7 and tight end 9 is like negligible at this point. I probably would be punting the tight end position. And if he's the guy that's available, I'd be really happy about taking a guy with that range of outcomes. That would be about the extent of it. The one guy that, or there's a couple guys I think on Fantasy Pros that are ahead of him. The one guy that I definitely wouldn't like is Kittle, because I don't know how Kittle would have uh, that league winning upside versus Njoku. But in the case of Kittle, I think he's a little bit safer. David Njoku is going to be a little bit more difficult to kind of parse out with that variable at the tight or at the quarterback position going on. So anyway, I think that's about all I got for today. I will come back probably tomorrow and start tonight. I'll start prepping the Bucks, and I'll try and get that video out for tomorrow. And yeah,